if we zoom all the way back to 2017, we briefly pierced it, which is very normal because there's a lot of stops that are put there by investors. There's this kind of mentality that people were buying just above 20,000. So for it to flush below, psychologically, a lot of them will jump out and get scared, and then price usually recovers. So in the very near term, I'm in the camp that we still have a little bit more upside to go. So I could see us bouncing back to 25.5 or so, maybe even 28. But I want to caveat that with saying that this is still a bear market. This is still an ice age, like you referred to it as. The charts are still pointing to overall further downside. You're right about a lot of the issues that are occurring, the Celsius news, the Terra Luna collapse. All of those are very much like the dot-com bubble bursting in 2000. And I think that's what crypto is going through right now. And if there's one thing I remember from that period, it was the very, very start of my career, is that it didn't end with just a few blow-ups.
Hello and welcome to Money Talks. In today's video, the popular trader who successfully predicted Bitcoin's crash and the president of InTheMoneyStocks.com, Gareth Soloway, updates about Bitcoin crashes and the possibility of Bitcoin market bottoming anytime soon. He also shares his macro framework regarding Bitcoin's next bull run and whether or not we'll see a temporary price recovery in Bitcoin markets. Gareth Soloway also reveals why he sees Bitcoin's price dropping to $12K before it actually rebounds. Make sure to stick around till the end of this video where Gareth explains why we are sliding towards a big recession and how Bitcoin can help us in combating inflation. So, without wasting any time, let's dive right into the video.
I do have a target that remains right around 12,000, so I fine-tuned it a little bit. The 12,000 level gives us a measured move. So if you take a look here, and this is kind of just some cool technical analysis, if you take this move down right here, right, so from this high down, which was a straight shot, then you had this kind of consolidation pattern, and then if you take this high down here, the measured move, meaning this distance to this distance, that's the exact distance from here to where the bottom should be put in. In addition, Bitcoin during its winters, its past bear markets, corrects 80 to 85%. If you correct that in this period, you get 12,000-ish, give or take as well. So there's a lot of confluence of levels at around 12,000 where my next target is.
Bitcoin starts a new week above $20,000, but heading for a bearish record as a key support level remains out of reach. After a calm weekend punctuated by a brief spike to nearly $22,000, Bitcoin is back near the closing price for CME futures markets. A round trip thus allows traders to pick up where they left off at the end of last week's final Wall Street trading session. But what could lie in store in the coming days?
No, so this is where it gets even more intriguing with how kind of a pro trader or pro investor handles it. So as much as I am a believer that there's a decent chance of going to 12,000, maybe even lower, right? I don't know for sure. There's also a chance it doesn't get there. So what I have done here is I basically selected and I said to myself, how much money am I willing to invest in Bitcoin in this bear market when it gets down to this area or below? I took that amount, let's just say $1 million, right? And I divide it into 6 categories, 6 even amounts. And when we were at 19,000, I took my first 1/6 and I bought Bitcoin there. And what I'm going to do is every $2,500 to $3,000 down, I'm going to buy another 1/6 position, eventually accumulating a full 6/6 position, right? And so the idea is I've been around the block enough where I understand that sometimes downside targets don't fully get achieved and sometimes they overshoot. So I don't try to pick the exact bottom. Once we get near, I just start slowly dollar cost averaging in, knowing that my long-term view on Bitcoin is still extremely, extremely bullish. 65K will be a low target for when this thing takes off in the next cycle. This is actually, so this is the crazy thing about it. When you were at 65,000, what did we hear, right? We heard the influencers investors, the talking heads, everyone was, oh, it's going
Yeah,
100,000 by the end of
absolutely.
November 2021, then 250, then 500. And it was ridiculous in that side. And now you're starting to hear the opposite. Everyone's saying, oh, it's a scam, it's going to go to zero. Those are actually contrarian views that as an investor, you need to separate from your own emotion. Meaning, the more I hear that, the more I believe that we are getting closer to a bottom. And basically, it just comes back to common sense. Just use your logic, right? Logic is the most powerful thing in investing, but so many people get caught up in
Mhm,
emotion
mhm.
instead to make their decisions. But if you think about how eventually we're going to slide back into a big recession, the Fed eventually is going to have to print more money. Central banks have already printed tons of money. There's a general need from a people's perspective all over the globe for this alternate to fiat currencies that cannot be printed willy-nilly. I mean, all of these factors make us need some sort of digital currency. Now you could say, well, gold could fill that role. I agree it does, but try, sending gold over countries, right? I mean, you can't pick up a bag of gold and just walk to the airplane and carry it easily. The key to crypto is how easily it can be transferred from country to country, how quickly, and how again it doesn't have that endless printing ability like fiat currency. So I'm in the camp that this is now the beginning of the end of the drop. Yes, it's going to get uglier. Yes, it's going to get harder for a lot of investors, but I do think below 20,000 gets us very close to that bottom, maybe around 12, maybe sub 12. But in the scheme of things, when you're talking about a move from 65,000 down, we're kind of at the tail end, right? We've already come down 40, 45, 50,000. Now we just have to do maybe another 10 or 5.
Based on the current positioning of Bitcoin prices relative to historical floor models, the market is already at an extremely improbable level, with only 0.2% of trading days being in similar circumstances. It noted that those who had bought Bitcoin in 2020 and 2021 had provided the driving force behind the recent selling. Almost all macro indicators for Bitcoin, ranging from technical to on-chain, are at all-time lows, coincident with bear market floor formation in previous cycles. Many are trading at levels with just single-digit percentage points of prior history at similar levels. Sentiment was no different with the Crypto Fear Greed Index at 10 out of 100, or extreme fear, also constituting a classic reversal level in bear markets gone by.
No, I think it absolutely will be. It just has to mature, right? So I always love saying, and I think this really sinks into people, is when you say, okay, Bitcoin is a 13-year-old, right? So it started in 2009. Here we are in 2022. It's the equivalent of a 13-year-old. I mean, for those of us that have kids, my kids are younger, but I've certainly known many 13-year-olds. I was one at one point, believe it or not. We weren't exactly rational. We were very emotional. We had these wild emotional swings up and down. And that's what Bitcoin's doing right now. It's kind of a very young asset. People are still trying to trust it, which makes it very volatile. Versus gold, which has been around for thousands of years, and a big day on gold is like 2%, right? I mean, like, holy cow, gold moved 2% versus Bitcoin like 20%. And so you have to kind of put it in perspective and say, okay, we all want it to mature into this offsetting of inflation and everything like that, but you got to give it time. It probably needs many, 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 many more years before it fully kind of behaves more like that gold type play.
Apathetic is a good word to describe the general sense of resignation among Bitcoin traders this week. While the weekend spared the average hodler more unwelcome surprises, data from Cointelegraph Market Pro and TradingView shows the fact remains that Bitcoin is far from where anyone wants it to be, even in a bear market. With the key 200-week moving average out of reach, there is precious little bullish sentiment out there, as evidenced by the extreme fear of the Crypto Fear and Greed Index firmly still in control.
In general, in a bear market, we want to stay away from the smaller, more speculative coins. I learned this the hard way in the stock market with small caps, where in bear markets it's harder to raise capital for coins that are still in that kind of establishing themselves phase. That's going to be very hard for them to attract capital in this type of environment. So you have to be careful with those. In general, I like to stick with kind of the top 20 coins because those are the biggest market caps. Those are the safest. Granted, Terra Luna taught us it wasn't necessarily all safe though. So you still have to be diversified. I will tell you this is that as I accumulate my longer term hold position, like I picked up a little Bitcoin, I am looking to do that to Ethereum as well if it gets down to, let's say, 825, 800. So the key is this is that for me in my hodl position, which I'm kind of calling it
Yeah.
that, where it's a longer term holding position, I'm really just focusing on Ethereum and Bitcoin, right? So my portfolio is a separate portfolio that I'm putting aside. It's more like a diversification insurance policy, and I'm really sticking with these two, mostly Bitcoin with kind of a smaller percentage in Ethereum. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't know how the other coins are going to do. How's Solana going to do? How's Ripple going to do? How are these other ones? I honestly don't know. And that makes me unsure about putting kind of my long-term money
Yeah.
at risk at this point. So you can see here on Ethereum, we've had an amazing collapse. We basically kissed this 850, 825 level. That was my level to kind of start buying my longer term position, very small at first. We never quite got there, so I just didn't get filled. But now we've rallied into minor resistance. And again, ultimately, I probably think that Ethereum still has more downside to go, even if it does continue up here in the short term. So for me at least, focus on best of breed. If you're someone like me that doesn't like losing money, then you need to go with the safest blue chip type cryptocurrency.
So, do you agree with Gareth Soloway that Bitcoin will bottom at $12,000? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.